flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lois, can you read the statement of certification of the meeting, please?
Certification of meeting has been advertised according to the Sunshine Law.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Venero.
Here.
Mr. Zungri. Mrs. Inaugurato.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Conti.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mrs. Shore.
Here.
Mr. Mankini.
Here.
Mr. Coviello. Mr. Anello. Mr. Daukus.
Here.
Mr. Herritz.
Here.
Mr. Vito.
Joseph Soriano for Rose Vito.
Mr. Dillon.
Here.
Do I have a motion for the approval of minutes of the September 10th and the September 14th, 2015 meetings?
So moved.
Second.
Lois, call the roll.
Hold on a second.
Hold on a second. Why is it taking? I'm running out of tape. Just bear with me. Yeah. Okay,
We're going to call the roll.
okay, Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Shore. Henry.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Medicine.
Yes.
And Mr. Daukus.
Yes.
Chairman's comments. I'd just like to remind our members that next month in November is the League of Municipalities in Atlantic City. If anyone gets the chance, it's an excellent opportunity to go there and take seminars and get yourself updated with current issues that involve us on the planning board. Correspondence and payment of bills. Anyone have questions or comments they'd like to make? Is there anything under old business?
Yes, actually. Mr. Di Lorenzo, you were going to look into the condo association on Franklin Avenue. Having that date in the back locked.
Franklin Avenue?
Well, it's,
Essex Park.
yeah, Essex Park, thank you.
Essex Park. Yeah, I checked with the fire department, they're supposed to get back to me. It's open in the back by the school.
Yes.
Yeah, I checked with them, they're supposed to get back to me, Billy Gans. I'll find out next week for you, I'll give you a call.
Because God forbid there's a fire, it's been like that now a couple of months, so we can get that, it's fixed by next month. Thank you.
Resolutions, we have the memorialization of PB-2010 plus B, 608 Mill Street, 121 Franklin Avenue Bridge. Mr. Di Lorenzo, some of the members had a question about, they had a condition of preserving the arch from the old bridge. They want to make sure that that's preserved. And we didn't see the wording in the resolution.
It's on page 17 of the transcript.
The old bridge, I just wanted to make.
All he's doing is putting a pedestrian walkway on it, that's all he's doing.
We understand that, but it was an agreed condition. It said, and also the condition of doing whatever needs to be structurally done to maintain the integrity of the historical bridge with the arch.
We'll hold off on it, put a condition on, that's all.
Yeah, just saying, it's not in there.
All right, we'll put it in there.
Okay, that's great, that's okay.
Yeah, we'll put it in there.
That's fine.
Can you approve it as amended?
Yeah, it's just wants a wording change.
Yeah, we can approve it as amended, and then next meeting, we'll have, by next meeting, Rose will probably have it done by next meeting.
Because I think it was just an oversight.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't intentional on Rose's part, but I know that it's in the transcript. So.
Okay.
So I guess Lois will call the roll as amended with the preservation of the arch.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Medicini?
Yes.
Mr. Dacus?
Yes.
Under new business, we have Resolution 15-228 of the Municipal Council asking the Planning Board to investigate whether Block 10002, Lot 1, and Block 9103, Lot 1, also known as 675 Main Street, should be designated as an area in need of redevelopment. I spoke to members of the board, and some of them would like some clarification on the wording in this redevelopment, and we'd like to get some input from the town council. So we'd like to put this off probably to next month until we get some clarification from the town council on this.
You want to like a memo sent to them, right?
Yes, we can do that, Mr.
Yeah,
DiLorenzo?
we can do, yeah, we can do that, Lois.
I don't know if we need to, so we don't have to re-notice anyone, we just forward it to the next meeting.
We need to table it. Need a motion to table
We
it?
need a motion.
There was no
There's
public
no
notice.
There was no notice?
Not
Okay.
yet, we're not at that point yet.
All right,
Motion to.
okay.
We need a motion to table. Do we need a motion to table?
If there's no notice at this point.
Oh, you don't need a motion. Got it. Thank you, Council.
Okay, application before the board, we have PB 2015-04, the redevelopment study by CME Associates for Terry, Cortland, and Joralemon Streets. Right, the microphone.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Rodriguez from the firm CME Associates. This is a need study for 3 properties located at the corner of Joralemon Street and Cortlandt Streets, also bounded by Terry Street to the north and the New Jersey Transit right-of-way to the west. The block number is 8902, and that's lots 1, 10, and 11. On February 10, 2015, the Town Council passed a resolution directing the Planning Board to undertake a need study for these 3 properties. This is a non-condemnation redevelopment study, and if there's a plan, a redevelopment plan, if you find that the properties do meet the statutory criteria to be designated as an area in need of redevelopment. So the Town Council retains all of the powers of the redevelopment law with the exception of acquiring property via eminent domain. It's not permitted. That's the way the resolution was written, and that's what we're proceeding on here. We were retained by the township back in May to complete the study and the plan if the designation moves forward. We completed our work between July and August. We prepared a report, which I believe was forwarded to all of you, dated August 21st. We conducted field work on July 30th to visit the site, document existing conditions. All the photos that are in that report are from that date. Again, the study area has 3 properties. It's approximately 2.15 acres. It's developed with a couple of residential buildings, a couple of commercial/industrial buildings. The only property that is solely a residence is Lot 11, which is the southeastern property. There are also residents located on lots 1 and 10, in addition to there being some non-residential improvements there as well. With respect to surrounding land uses, we have residential and commercial properties to the east. There are some heavy commercial uses such as a screen printing and embroidery shop. Also looks like a scrap metal collection business. Then the rest of the properties on that direction are residential. To the south, you have a mixed office and warehouse building. To the west, as I mentioned before, is the New Jersey Transit right-of-way. On the other side of the tracks, there's a bunch of commercial and townhome uses. To the north, there's residential and industrial uses. There's an auto glass distributor occupying one of the warehouses across Terry Street. With respect to zoning, we're in the IB zone here. That's one of the town's industrial districts. It permits a variety of non-residential uses, storage, warehousing, manufacturing, laboratory and research facilities, offices, packaging and processing establishments, and garages and body shops are permitted as a conditional use. And that's important because there is a garage occupying the property at this time. Bulk and yard requirements in the IB zone, 5,000 square feet of lot area, 50-foot lot width, 100-foot lot depth, front and rear yard setbacks of 15 feet, 5-foot side yard, 50% lot coverage, and maximum building height of 3 stories or 40 feet. Oh, and 40 feet, I should say. With respect to the master plan calls this area out as being part of the valley. The master plan was adopted in 2009. That's the date of the most recent land use plan amendment. Notes that there's a heavy presence of manufacturing, assembly, and warehouse type of industrial uses, and also commercial and residential uses between larger industrial sites within the valley. But it also notes that there's a persistent vacancy rate and general disrepair among industrial sites, declining use of industrial sites in the area. And recognizes that there's a shift from an industrial past to a retail, commercial, and residential present. The plan also recognizes the role that redevelopment plays in changing land use patterns in this area, and recognizes that that process will continue into the future. With respect to, I brought the board, but I forgot an easel, so forgive me. This is an aerial of the site here. 11, 10, 1, and then on the other side here, somebody's saving here. Thank you. Thanks. And then this is figure 2.
Can that be put up so the public can see it all?
Sure, yeah,
I can move it.
You can put it to the side.
I'll
Put it over.
Hopefully we can get everybody to catch a glimpse here.
Yeah, just leave it in front of you.
That's it.
There you go, right there.
Put it in the bleachers.
Yeah.
All right. These two figures, the aerial photograph which I showed you just previously, that's figure 1 in Appendix B of the report. You also should have it in your packets. And this is figure 2. This is just existing land uses, which I kind of glossed over already. You have industrial uses to the north and south, a mix of commercial, multifamily, and residential to the west, and also residential commercial to the east. So just with respect to the redevelopment analysis we undertook, we looked at, again, we visited the site, we documented the conditions of the site at the time of the site visit. We reviewed township tax maps, tax records, aerial photos, sales and ownership information, and also we were able to access a phase 1 environmental site assessment for block 8902 lot 1, which is the northernmost property. Just quickly, our conclusions are that all of the properties either meet one or more of the statutory criteria to be designated as an area in need of redevelopment. Specifically, we're focused on the A, the B, and the D criteria. And just very quickly, I'll go through those for you. The A criteria is the generality of buildings are substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated, or obsolescent, or possess any such characteristics or are so lacking in light, air, or air or space as to be conducive to unwholesome living or working conditions. Criterion B is the discontinuance of the use of buildings previously used for commercial, manufacturing, or industrial purposes, the abandonment of such buildings, or same being allowed to fall in so great a state of disrepair as to be untenantable. And the D criterion is areas with buildings or improvements which by reason of dilapidation, obsolescence, overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, lack of ventilation, light and sanitary facilities, excessive land coverage, deleterious land use or obsolete layout, or any combination of these other factors are detrimental to the health, safety, welfare, or morals of the community. So those are the 3 criteria that we're basing our analysis on. So just very quickly, I'll go through the properties, what we saw, and our conclusions for each property, and then I'll just kind of sum it up and open it up to questions from the public. Block 8902, lot 1, is just less than an acre, it's 0.94 acres. It's developed with a 1-story masonry industrial building, also a 2-story residence. The residence appears to be in fair condition. It looks like it may be a 2-family. This is a little bit unusual, and it's a pattern that we saw in doing our field work. We have a lot of properties developed with an industrial use, but also a residential use. Not really consistent with modern land use planning or planning practices. definitely exhibits a sort of an obsolete site layout for each of the properties. The non-residential building is a masonry building. It's not in great condition. It exhibits signs of dilapidation. Looks to create some unsafe conditions. There's broken boarded up windows. The window frames are severely rusted and look like they're corroded. The roof is bowed from one wall, the northerly wall, down toward the center of the building. The exterior facade is cracked. It hasn't been maintained. Just in general, there's a lack of maintenance on the property. There's a lot of trash and bulk items around. And again, as I mentioned before, you're seeing an obsolete land use and site layout. You have residential and industrial buildings and uses on the same property. As I mentioned before, the environmental site assessment notes a removal of an underground storage tank took place on that property. Was not conducted in accordance with DEP regulations. That phase 1 environmental site assessment noted discharge of material, and that further investigation is recommended, specifically soil and groundwater sampling, to see the extent of the contamination on the site. The property meets the A and D criteria. Again, the buildings exhibit signs of dilapidation. They look to be substandard and unsafe from a structural standpoint. The phase 1 assessment also noted likely presence of asbestos and lead-based paints due to the age of the building and the time it was constructed. Also, again, possible soil contamination. And then again, I'm coming back to the site layout issue where you see a residential use next to an industrial use. Really detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the community as a whole, having an industrial use located in such close proximity. And really there's just a general lack of appropriate maintenance on the site. Excessive land coverage, 86%, just about 50% is permitted in the zone, substantially exceeds that. The masonry building looks to be suitable for some type of shop or warehouse or something like that, distribution, but the area doesn't really lend itself to that kind of use. So there's that to be noted from an obsolescence standpoint. Block 8902, lot 10 is about 1.07 acres. That's the property to the south, the other big property there. It's developed with 2 masonry structures and 2 frame structures, including 1 residence. There's also a retaining wall along the westerly property line next to the New Jersey Transit tracks. It looks to be used as an auto and truck repair facility. It looks like there's 1 vacant past industrial structure there. Also, it's an equipment storage yard for use. Looks like dump trucks are parked there and stored there overnight before being dispatched to the sites. Buildings are generally in poor condition, dilapidated, look to be neglected. Again, exterior facades peeling and cracked, rotting, improper repairs took place, windows are broken, boarded up, window frames are rusted, roof soffits rotting and missing. The retaining wall on the westerly property line looks to be at least partially failing. There are big gaps in that. You have soil coming through. It's not really doing its job anymore, for lack of a better term. The site layout is haphazard. Again, you have residential uses mixed with commercial uses. Yeah, it's 100% covered. There's storage of construction materials, garbage, inoperable cars, car parts, so on and so forth throughout the property. And it looks to really meet the A, B, and D criterion. For the A criterion, the condition of the buildings lend itself to being designated under that criterion. The B criterion, you have at least 1 vacant industrial building there. And then the D, the site layout, in fact, there's a residence next to some heavy commercial and industrial land uses there. Again, the condition of the retaining wall. All those lend themselves to be in need of redevelopment there. Finally, the final property is block 8902, lot 11. That's 0.13 acres. That's the southeastern yellow property there. Study area is outlined in black, so it's the southeasternmost property there. Just a residence, but also part of the storage of the dump trucks and the construction materials take place on that site within the backyard area. The building is in okay condition. It does exhibit some lack of maintenance and repair. Again, it comes back to the land use issue, the proximity of a residential use next to a use such as storage yard and a garage, and it looks like storage of construction materials. Our conclusion was that this property meets the D criterion. Again, lack of maintenance, in need of repair. Obsolete land use, doesn't really conform to the zone. This is an industrial zone, and we have a residential use here. A partial use of the site as a storage for the dump trucks is another issue. And then again, it goes back to the excessive lot coverage issue. It's 100% covered, 50% is permitted in the zone. That's basically it from our conclusions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the public or from the board at this time. Thank you.
The lot you just talked about,
Yeah.
on Jerome Street, is that part of the redevelopment?
Yeah, it's this property, block 8902 lot 1, 8902 lot 10, and 8902 lot 11. So it's 3 properties. This is a residential, single-family residence, and then 2 properties that have a variety of uses and improvements.
Could you tell me where this house is?
Good. That house is right here, actually. This would probably help. Right here. Sorry. That's this house. So if you're walking up from the corner, there's a house on the corner here. There's the entrance to the yard. There's an industrial building here. Right next to that is where that house is, and it's located on the same property.
Yeah, I live in that part.
You live in that house?
Yes.
That's part of your...
Yeah, it's very unusual, and it's not just that lot, but it's also this lot here. You have a residence on the corner here, and then the rest of this lot is dedicated really to industrial.
Have that house picture here?
That house, yes, it should be. Let me just give you a page number. Page 9 of the report. The top left photo and the top right photo are both that house.
That's part of the plan, right?
Yeah, it's part of the study area, and it's located all in the same lot. So unless it was subdivided, which the resolution doesn't reference that, our data doesn't reference that, that house is part of that property. And as I mentioned, the house is it looks to be in okay condition. And really, the issue is the rest of the improvements on the property and what goes on the rest of the property.
So I'm presuming that there are tenants in those houses.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there's one here this evening that appears at least.
There's at least 14.
Are these 3 lots, are they owned by one particular owner? Or multiple?
Microphone, please.
I guess whether the 3 lots that are part of the study, if they're, I'm wondering whether there's multiple owners or just one owner on the 3 lots.
The ownership information we have, block 8902 lot 1, is owned by an entity called Ginseng Upcorp, care of K. Weinstein. The owner's address is a Worcester, Massachusetts address.
What lot is that?
That's block 8901 lot 1, 8902, sorry, lot 1, that's the northern property. And then the 2 southerly properties, block 8902 lot 10 and block 8902 lot, block 8902 lot 10 is owned by the same entity as block 8902 lot 1. So these 2 big properties here are owned by the same entity. The Ginseng Upcorp, care of K. Weinstein, Worcester, Massachusetts is the address. Block 8902 lot 11, just give me 1 second, please, is owned by an entity, 371 Cortland Street LLC, care of Khokar, Khokhar, and that's a Nutley address, a little bit closer to home.
Just out of curiosity, when asked to do the study, what were the other houses on the block not included in the study in somewhere? Just because they weren't a part of the bigger site?
I'm not really sure. That's probably a better question for the township council, to be honest with you. I think it's just coincidentally, these properties happen to contain 2 residences, just the lot line issue and an ownership issue. Not sure why the other properties were not included.
So that house on yes, correct. That is owned by Ginseng. So everyone in there is a tenant.
Yes, ma'am, I would assume that's the case, yes.
And-
That's not, it doesn't, unless the owner lives here, which owner's information suggests that the owner doesn't. That's a tenant.
And the one on the corner on JORALEMON Street, it's right directly on the corner of that one. That's owned by Ginseng as well?
No, that's owned by 371 Cortland Street LLC. That's a different owner. The other two are Ginseng, of course. Here,
Is that occupied?
it looked to be, yes. It looked to be. I couldn't tell without going inside. I didn't see anybody come in or out of the building, but it looked like, I mean, there were curtains on a couple of the windows. The blinds looked to be drawn.
I'm wondering whether that really was ever officially a residence. That's the only.
Well, that's the other, yeah, that's a valid, but I couldn't tell you with respect to use. The use information that we depicted on figure 2 here is based on tax records from the township. So the tax records for this property, so it's taxed at a residential tax rate. And that's how we determine the existing land use. May not be consistent with what's actually going on in the building, but without going in the building, we don't know.
Where was, on what lot, and where was it where there was a tank removal and there's contamination because of?
Potential contamination.
Potential.
It was just really, a phase 1 is essentially just an existing conditions assessment. Doesn't go into the extent of any contamination or anything of that. Says that there may be contamination, has to be studied further. That property was this property here.
That whole property?
Yeah, the phase 1 was conducted for the whole property. I don't know where the tank was on the property. The phase 1 doesn't really go into that. Just says that there was a tank removed.
Where was the location of the print shop?
Print shop is across the way on the corner.
Oh, okay.
Across, not in the study area.
All right, I understand then. I'm familiar with that business. That, the way the lots are connected then, it almost looks like there's an access that goes out to Cortland.
Yeah, right there. And it's an unusual lot layout to have 6, 7-sided lot. It's like an access easement almost, or utility
How
easement.
wide is that easement?
It's probably, I would have to guess probably 10, 15 feet, not very. But without actually, I could look at the tax map, and that would give you the dimension.
I would imagine, being there's no talk of eminent domain at that house on the corner of JORALEMON, there's some agreement or talk to a purchase, or maybe it's a separate owner?
That would be my guess, yeah. I couldn't answer that again definitively.
Jerry?
The residents on the properties, you know, when they were built, you keep saying that they weren't, you know, in accordance with land use, current land use. Wouldn't they be grandfathered?
Yeah, you can't hear it.
What I'm asking is, when were the residences built? Because you're saying that they're currently not in accordance with the land use. But wouldn't they be grandfathers?
They are existing non-conforming uses with respect to current law. As long as those properties aren't expanded, if the residences aren't expanded, there's really no, they can continue to be occupied as such.
Right, so any dilapidation issues would be a code enforcement.
I mean, theoretically.
Any other board members have questions? If not, does anybody in the public have questions? Stand, come up to the microphone, state your name, please.
reside at 403 Cortland Street. To answer your question, my property is on the north side.
I have to swear you in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I,
Your last name, R-O-T-H-W-E-L-L?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
My property is located on the north side, the center property, to let you know, in the center. Up, yep. To let you know, that house was built in 1884. I've been
That's
in
your house, ma'am?
my house. I've been there 28 years. As much as I appreciate the property to be developed, I seriously think that this council needs to rethink about residential property. That school system that takes care of that whole neighborhood is school number 9. It's already overcapacitated. To build residential properties, rental properties, condominiums, it's not feasible in that area. Sitting and talking about the one house next to, on the south property, going north towards Little Street, Mr. Pezantes. He lives there, he's here also. You're putting him out of his home. He's been there for almost as long as I can remember living in my house. I think that if the property is in such disarray, I think the township then needs to get in touch with Ginseng to bring it up to code. And, you know, how can it go that far, you know, to have a developer come in and say, well, we want to put apartments here, or we want to put condominiums here, or we want to, our township 50 years ago was funded and substantiated by businesses. And our taxpayers, the homeowners, our taxes weren't that high. But as the years have been going on, we're losing businesses. And now the burden of supporting this town is falling on the taxpayers. You have close to 1,000 homes falling into foreclosure because homeowners cannot afford it. And you're building and developing rental properties, and you're giving tax breaks to these developers. But even rental properties aren't. It took me 9 months to find somebody to rent in my house because I own a 2-family duplex. It took that long for me to find somebody because the rent are astronomical. The taxes are going up. I really ask that you rethink this and stop find another avenue to develop Belleville and stop trying to pump up residential to come in. We can't afford it in this town. Our police department can't afford it. Our fire department can't afford it. Our school system can't afford it. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I have out of school district because I see what it's falling to. This is falling into Newark. Worse than Newark. You know why? Because Newark has at least a property where they can build and have companies come in and build Panasonic, Rutgers University, the NJ Pack Center, and Prudential Center, and everything else. We don't have that type of property available in Belleville. You're going to put this town in the toilet. Continue to put it in the toilet if you allow this irresponsible development to continue. So I ask that you please rethink this and think about the homeowners. Like I said, I've been there 28 years. Yes, the building, you know what? The one thing I have to say for the amount of taxes I pay, but that's 3 people I don't have to deal with noise ordinance. That's 3 people I don't have to deal with behind me where the factory is, where Ginseng used to have their warehouse. That's 3 people I don't have to deal with property maintenance. And like I said, my house has been there since 1884, and we've only had 1 new home built on that street, which is directly across from me, which was built in 2005. And that's a flood area. Been there 28 years. I was the lady that ran out of my house with the orange cones, putting it on Terry Street and down by JORALEMON, just so traffic wouldn't go through. So I think you need to really take into consideration and really not push this through as much as I would like to see something done with the property, but not residential property. The house, the condos across the street, years and years went. unoccupied. That because they weren't being, couldn't be sold, they couldn't be rented. I know, I've been there 28 years. I raised 3 children, raising another daughter there. And in 2 years when she goes to high school, I'm out. But I think about my neighbors here who are still raising children in that neighborhood. I've gone from not seeing any children to my 3 children to no children at all to now families starting to come back in that are renting small children. This is ridiculous. I hope you really reconsider.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm confused now. Is this the time for questioning the witnesses or final summation?
What do you have, Mr. Clerk? What do you have?
Well, I'm just questioning the procedure, because normally you question the witness, then at the end, the public can state all the
She
things.
started, I didn't want to cut her off, but do you have questions? I'd like to get
Yeah.
the questions over with.
I'd like to question
Go ahead.
the witness here. Sir, how long has this gentleman saying that that's the correct pronunciation, been the owner of the property?
I'm not really sure. I'd have to go back and look at the tax records.
Right. When did you tour or inspect this area?
July 30th of this year.
Of 2015? Right. And you haven't been there since?
I have not.
You made a couple of statements that there's a persistent vacancy condition in the area.
No, I didn't say that. I said that the master plan notes that the valley section of town, generally you're seeing a declining industrial base where you're seeing increased vacancy rate. I didn't say that particularly of this site. I was quoting the master plan.
But did you look at the area, did you see vacancies
I saw
of industrial properties and commercial properties?
this building here is vacant. This building here is occupied. This building in the back looks to be partially occupied, partially vacant. That's what I witnessed when I did my field.
Did you go right across the street to JORALEMON and Cortland?
That building looked to be at least partially occupied. This is not in the area of study, so really I focused my research and my field work in this area here, these 3 properties. But I did notice that there are tenants in there. It looked to be busy.
Did you study to the north
I did not.
of the subject property?
This property here?
Yeah.
This property, yeah.
And-
That property I noted before it looks to be an auto glass distributor in there.
Okay. And
That
next
does
door to
on-site.
them on Cortland Street, did you look at all those?
This is about as far as I looked. From JORALEMON, southern part of JORALEMON, up to the northern part of Terry.
Right. And you said this area does not lend itself to industrial use.
I didn't say the area didn't lend itself to industrial use. The way these properties are situated, the types of uses that could potentially be in there, a warehouse of distribution that would require trucks to come and load and offload product to the site. It's my opinion that without substantial site improvements, it could be redeveloped as such. This redevelopment study, if it were to go forward, could potentially net some new, more modern warehouse development. It just doesn't work in this configuration, is my opinion.
Right. That being said, if you were to have looked at the property, again, to the south, the immediate south of it, and the immediate north of it, and see very, very similar structures who have businesses in there, which have deliveries all the time, with tractor trailers, big trucks and all. But you didn't do that.
I didn't see it when I was there, no.
You didn't do that. The other thing you said is presence of lead paint and asbestos, but you don't know.
That's from the phase 1 environmental site assessment for block 8902 lot 1. That's directly in that report. That was done by another firm.
Right, but you also said.
No, I don't know. And the report acknowledges that it doesn't know. It says that based on the date and the year of construction, or the estimated year of construction, there is likely lead-based paints or asbestos within that building.
Right, but you said without going into the building, we don't actually know.
Exactly.
The other, the previous one, a lot of this, would you agree, is property maintenance? I mean, you described it, that your building that you inspected as poor maintenance on it, dilapidated condition?
There's a significant lack of maintenance of the property in general, of the properties in general, but also the condition of the buildings. It doesn't really look like the buildings have been properly repaired in situations where they needed to be repaired. And it doesn't really look to be, it looks partially like the buildings have been neglected.
Mr. Chairman, is this the time for me to make a statement?
Right
Or
up there,
at the end of the
Mr.
meeting?
Until you can finish up, sure.
Finish up. All right. He was there in July. There was a study I did, relatively recent, 4:10 to 5:15 this afternoon, a few hours ago. Now, I went from Cortlandt Street all the way down, starting from DPW. You have Portland, you have Fleet Parts and Services right across from DPW. Next to that, you have the Orthodox Baking Company. Next to that, Merritt Kitchens, Workalite, then Belleville Kidney Clinic, Signature Fitness takes up the entire block. You have Eurotex, rugs and bath mats, Satchin International, Bartlestone Glass Distributor, BK Classic Auto Glass, E&L Installers, Custom Cabinets, Allstate Metal, National Sportswear. On the corner of JORALEMON, where the gentleman said the trucks are stored, every afternoon I see that is being used as an industrial site. The trucks are there, and they're conducting business there. Now, right across the street at 357, that corner building, you have 8 businesses in that building, not partially rented. JFI Printing, Label Text, Income Packaging, Excel, Fever Dreams, Media Blasters, the
Mr.
printer place.
Frantantoni, he's talking about the area here. He's saying that the property that he investigated is underutilized. The whole town's not underutilized. The property he investigated is. We understand there's businesses in the valley, absolutely.
There's not a single vacancy other than that property on Cortlandt Street from DPW to Home Street.
But we're investigating this property, though.
Yeah, but this is spot zoning, if you want to consider that. And it's not, and this is a case, I think Mr. Walsh brought it up, this is a case of property maintenance. The building department should go in there, and if it's in such dire condition, he's got to be cited. I mean, last year, a 92-year-old World War II veteran received a summons because his grass was over 12 inches high. And there's no violations here. This is property maintenance. It's not an area of redevelopment. All around. Now, I can go on, but all the way down, these are all the businesses down there. Not one vacancy in any of those buildings. In fact, the corner building, years ago, the businesses were thrown out to build senior citizen housing. I don't know if any of you were around then and all that. They were approved for 102 units. And then the developer backed out because he didn't want to use his money. Within 6 months, every part of that building was again occupied with industrial space. And like I said, there's 8 tenants in it now. So that is an area, and there's no problem. The gentleman, in all due respect, is wrong. There's no problem with all those other buildings, and I think you should be familiar because you live in Belleville. All those buildings are built on almost 0 lot lines. When I was down there, there's tractor trailers delivering stuff. There's UPS with delivering materials. They have no problem. The glass company, I dealt with them at one time. They're in and out. So the industry finds a way to take care of itself down in the valley. This is not an area of need redevelopment. But, I just want to tell you something. In 1985, the early 80s, when town council commissioners at that time wanted to blight Washington Avenue, we fought that. An area needed redevelopment because it was a similar thing that's happening now. There was no need of it. And they hired Towns Plan Associates to conduct a study. Well, we the citizens tore that study apart. It was a phony study, and it hurts it. But we weren't winning as citizens, so we had to hire a lawyer. The firm was Brack, Eichler, Rosenberg, Silver, Bernstein, Hammer, and Gladstone. Mr. William Brock, probably the best development attorney and redevelopment attorney in the state at that time, we hired him. In one meeting, he destroyed the plan, and we won. Because and here's the letter he sent us back in '85. I won't read it all. But you create a condition, possibly, which has happened in several cases. One of them was in Trenton. Another one actually happened with a former attorney who lived in Belleville, Mr. Emil Nordachone. In the case involving the North Housing Authority and Riccardi Paints, right? You create a condition of inverse condemnation, right? Where you declare an area blighted, and like the lady, now you got an area that the properties around it, the value drops. That is exactly what happened. When Belleville declared...
Do you think the property value would drop if new buildings were put on that property instead of parking 27 dump trucks working day and night coming in and out? You think that would decrease the value? We don't even have a plan yet to see what would go there.
No, I don't care what he wants to put up. Let him go before the zoning board and do the proper. Let him present a plan.
I work for the township. I don't work for anybody. I work for the township.
We don't have a plan yet.
I've been contracted by the township.
It's not a plan.
It's not a plan. It's just a study.
It's not a plan. Then why did the chairman just say you don't think housing is going to be good for them?
Well,
I didn't say it.
There's not too many uses that would be worse off than what's there right now.
What? It's vacant building.
You just said they're all occupied. I think
Yeah,
it's
except
I've
his.
driven it out here.
Except his.
It's
It's a
underutilized.
vacant building.
It's underutilized.
Well, let him take care of it. But what happens when you declare blight, all the property values on Washington Avenue drop immediately. Rogers Mill Supply was next to the Branchwood Manor. He sold that. He moved to Clifton within a month. I was vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. He said, I'm getting out of here. And he got much less for his property than he could have had. All along Washington Avenue, properties were sold at reduced value because they had the stigma on it, right? I worked for a customer about 2 months ago. The realtor, I met him when he sold my shirt out from Belleville. He said, what's going on? How many contaminated places you got? I said, what are you talking contaminated? He said, I read in my trade line, there's a lot of areas in need of redevelopment. He called them blighted areas. I said, no, they're just doing that as a favor to developers. But that's the stigma that you're creating by calling all these areas an area in need of redevelopment. Now, if you said, if he wants to put housing don't belong back there. And I'm only bringing it up because you brought it up. How's a fire truck going to get in there? There's a railroad track right next to it. There's residential in front of it. You're going to jam condos? I don't know if that's what you think is going back there. All right, that's it. But this letter he sent to us, he gives all courts, the court said, and it went to the Supreme Court, the court where there is a blight declaration, the law imposes the municipal body the responsibility to particularly careful in the exercise of and the authority to declare blight, and to provide the property owners from careless use of the power to declare blight. So whatever goes there, let him, number one, and I think the building inspector should go down. I mean, like the elderly veteran got a notice about his grass. Well, he should be cited. Fix up the building if it's a hazard. But secondly, it's not an area in need of redevelopment. This is a developer who wants to maximize the green stuff going into his pocket. And he wants your assistance to do it. The other thing, when you declare an area in need of redevelopment, you get the powers. It increases our taxes just on one thing, because if you understand something, the money that comes in, they're usually going to do a pilot payment in lieu of taxes.
We're talking about a pilot program.
Well, not yet. Not yet, but everything else you've done, and look at that, you declared School 1 property in need of redevelopment. He went to the zoning board, got approved for 60 apartments, never built it. You declared the senior citizen an area in need of redevelopment over there, which was a dedicated property to be used for recreation only.
Let's stick to this project.
Well, yeah, but the thing, everything you've done, area in need of redevelopment, stand up and tell us how great those areas turned out. They're killing us. Every single one of
Do you rather
areas.
see this property left the way it is? You think it's a good use of the way it is presently?
Let them go fix it up. And I bought property. I bought over 9 properties. Dilapidated property. I fixed every one up. I didn't ask for any government help. all the money out of my
No mention,
pocket.
there's no mention of government help.
Well, when I say government help, the township of Belleville is the government.
There's no-
And they've given payment in lieu of taxes to all these developers, and I don't know if you understand it.
I
Under that
understand it.
scenario, the school gets no taxes. The municipal government gets 95%.
I understood that the municipal government gets the taxes in the state and county though. But let's not discuss that because there's no talk about a pilot program or anything else. We're talking about an area in need of redevelopment. If this property is underutilized or meets the criteria that this person spoke to us about, and we have to decide on those issues.
But
Does
it
meet
doesn't
those
meet the criteria.
That's your opinion.
It doesn't meet their criteria. None of these meet. It's a property maintenance issue. And I think Mr. Walsh has started to allude to it. It's not an area in need of development. It's it's being used right now. The gentleman here said it's being used, and I see it every day. Those dump trucks are there during the day. You see workers there. That
Mr.
property.
DiLorenzo, is that property even zoned to park dump trucks overnight outside, ungaraged?
Probably have to check the use on the property, how many he has down there.
That was a lumber yard years ago, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, and there was trucks in there all the time.
Was it illegal?
Huh?
Was it legal?
Well, it might have predated the zoning board because it was the zoning
Before
board was like
1923?
1979.
1923 was the zone. That's
Huh?
when it would predate something.
Well, I've been in Belleville 50 years. And as long as I remember, when I came, it was a lumber yard then. But this
Could
is
you
not.
sum up, Mr. Francis Martin?
Yes, I'm asking you to please. This is not a good thing for Belleville. And as I stated, just look at the past history of what this board has done with the other areas in the redevelopment. You were embarrassed with when you approved the 50-story monster, an area in need of redevelopment. Well, what I'm saying, the board, not you personally. The board should have been embarrassed, and then the council rejected. That was so out of line, and there's two members that talked to me privately against it, and then that night they voted for it. So it just boggles the mind. One of us had me and my wife cornered for about 20 minutes in the path bar. So there was an example again that these are properties that could be developed, like I've developed my property with my own money without asking for area and need redevelopment. This is hurting Belleville. It's going to hurt our school system because 95%, and you don't know, but I'm telling you what the law is. 95% goes to the municipal government and 5% goes to the county. The Board of Education gets nothing. But if we produce kids in the school system, they got to pay for it. So what happens? The taxes, like the young lady said before me, go up. So you're creating excessive taxes, we just got our tax bills the last 2 days.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Taxes
Big
are going
tax
up.
increases.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Huge tax increases. And what happens? Every year, for the last 4 years, every time we get our tax bills, you immediately houses for sale. In the last year, 3 of my neighbors out of here, they can't afford it. And guess what? Yes, the houses are sold, but every one of them, they put illegal apartments in it. Sneaking basement apartments, renting attics. So you're hurting the town. Please do not declare this an area in need of redevelopment. It's a property maintenance issue.
Anyone else?
I have comments, but really not so much for this gentleman here. So should I make my...
Here, come up to the microphone, get sworn in.
Sure.
Proceed.
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut.
Please raise your right hand. Please swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Just one question. Are you familiar with the Boxer report on municipal tax abatements? It's kind of a guideline for the state and municipal
I am by no means a tax professional.
Oh, you are? Okay. All right. Well, under redevelopment, that certainly applies very carefully. I mean, I'd love to share it with the board, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but really should read it through. Because this, in effect, sounds a lot like spot zoning. And I agree that if you have properties that are not productive, that's one thing. But because they're not properly maintained, that's an entire different subject. And if they are looking like a blight, but the taxes are paid on the property and the structure, then it's not fitting the right criteria. The idea that the corner property, formerly a lumber yard, now truck parking or whatever, is meeting its intended zone. This appears to have homes that are going to have to be bought or assumed by the developer, if there's going to be one for redevelopment, that are not presently abandoned, or
I don't think there's any talk of taking any of the houses.
none of those homes will be included,
No.
only existing
Correct.
ones that, okay, all right, that's a relief. But again, this is property that's up against an abandoned railroad siding. And, the use of that, other than industrial, seems completely out of place. Certainly, the board needs to be extremely sensitive about increasing population, because increasing population leads to the overhead that we now support that's crushing us, that has built-in tax increases every year. And we all admit taxes are going up and it's getting harder and harder to live here. Population is what drives that, not industrial or commercial, which pay taxes and take no services, put no children in the schools, pay for all their own expenses. They're a gift to reducing taxpayers' burden as opposed to residential, which increases it, and all the legacy costs that come along with salaries, pensions, and benefits. So the idea that this would be appropriate for redevelopment, when to look at it, and the intended use and the shape of the property, and the fact that it really is the area that's behind the houses, it seems to be the greatest degree of question, which has the most difficult, is most difficult to utilize. I mean, what do you do there in 100-foot wide with, glass-covered, graffiti-covered railroad tracks behind you? And the idea that it would be converted potentially to residential is a total misapplication of eminent domain, is what it was.
Nobody mentioned eminent
Yeah,
domain.
I know.
Nobody mentioned that.
I got you. But to look at that back property alone, what do you do with that unless you take other property to get into? So those other properties are productive. This is a landlocked piece of property that really is what's in question. It may be the health department, building codes, and other officials should take a careful look at. And that's basically what my opinion is, and we should try to do our best to limit residential expansion, especially where it concerns former industrial properties that are now very productive in value. And really, maybe the planning board should advise the council, whomever it is that's going to revisit the master plan, to consider the flight of industrial from the valley section is a misnomer. It's a non-starter. It's really, there's almost nothing left that isn't utilized. And certainly if taxes are being paid and property's there, then, what is the point? Finally, I don't think you could obtain private funding for something like this under normal conditions. If you were to go to banks, who's going to get behind that development? And I think that should be a litmus for this board to consider when looking at any type of redevelopment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
My
My name is Washington Casantes. I live on 381 Cortland Street in the borough.
spell your first name?
Washington.
Washington.
Yes.
Spell your last name, please.
P-E-S-A-N-T-E-Z.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Please swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I came to Belleville in 1996 and I started living in one of the properties in the map. It's at 381 Cortland, which is next to the building that is vacant. But that's like a garage that we used to maintain the property as I know that Jason didn't have the money to maintain well the property, so I was responsible of taking care of this. And I was the one cutting the grass in JORALEMON Street and also in Cortland Street, which for that I got reduced rent from them. And inside the warehouse, also I walked to the warehouse and I always check there is a lot of kids who bundle the building and come inside, so always I was there trying to cover the belonging or trying to take care of the property. But as one man, I cannot do as much because really ginseng up, I don't know, they don't have money to do that, I guess. So I raised my kids. I have two kids. One is now in middle school, and now one is in high school. And so they make a community here. They got their friends. And one time I proposed to Jensen up to sell me the house that I can take care of myself and take care of my family. But they refused that plan. They said they want to do as one lot and try to sell everything to a developer and try to put buildings. And the developer told me he will take care of me. But I cannot even offer money to me if I can convince the neighbors to sell their houses. He will give me $5,000 for each house. I will convince them. But it's not just about the money. I'm long years in that area.
Excuse me, which house is yours?
381
It's this house.
Cortland Street, right here. So that's where I lived for 14 years. And so I work as a sub-custodian because I got fired from my job. I worked for 4 years as a sub-custodian, and I know very well the school system and how overpopulated are the schools. My kids went to school number 9. I was also there, Parents Teacher Association. I helped with the kids, raising funds, selling things that we can do something for them. So I work in the high school nighttime. They give me 2 days a week, a few days. I try to be full-time, but I never could have that job. So I left and I will find my job, which I do. I'm a jeweler. So I work in a charity, and I got a job, so finally I worked for a year. But as I said, I like the place, I like to maintain, and please consider my family. And the next family also on the other side, another family that lives there for 20 years, Schmidt. They live there, and one is retired. So please consider them too, because if they tear down the houses, I don't know where they're going to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public have a question or a comment that I can make at this time? If not, we'll close the public section. Someone like to make a motion to designate this area an area in need of redevelopment?
I have a question. In your recommendation, did you make a final recommendation on its best use? Have you determined that an industrial commercial use wouldn't be good there if it was a new?
No. The recommendation is based on the existing conditions of the properties. The way that they're laid out now is probably not the most conducive way to an industrial use. However, if a developer were to buy this property, regardless of whether there's a redevelopment designation or not, and chose to redevelop something within, by right in the IB zone, I don't see why it couldn't work. But the conditions of the property now are such that the properties are in such disrepair, or elements of the properties are in such disrepair. There are a mix of uses that really don't belong together. Just reading what's there in the property now versus what the statute states as for a property to be designated, it's my professional opinion that these properties could be designated. But that's, ultimately the decision is up to all of you.
So a potential developer would still have the option to do a commercial, industrial, and/or residential. They would need this certification of redevelopment if they wanted to do
Well, right.
residential.
If there was to be a residential component, they would need the designation.
Why don't you explain the procedure within that?
Sure.
Okay.
At this point, what happens is if you agree with the findings of the study, you make the motion to recommend to the Township Council that the area is in need of redevelopment. Ultimately, what happens is the Township Council chooses to either act or not act on the board's recommendation. If they act on the board's recommendation and they designate the area, a plan needs to be developed for the area. That plan is specific zoning, land use controls, bulk and yard standards, design standards for this property. From that point, a developer could file a site plan application and move forward under the purview of the requirements of the redevelopment. There are other things, but that's the Reader's Digest version.
Personally, I've been in my own business for 33 years. It's getting harder and harder to find space to operate your business. Newark is difficult because of its location. Belleville is desirable. I agree to a certain point. The valley is populated with businesses that are thriving. I'm not so sure. There was a development that happened down along Main Street in Nutley where they put up 6 or 8 brand new units, garages, offices above. They were immediately rented and used in that commercial industrial use. You know, trying to find somebody to do that's another question. We might say we'd like to see industrial down there, but can we find somebody who's willing to put $1 million or more into developing it as an industrial use? As it currently is, you would have to put a lot of money into that property to bring it up to code and back. Let's forget about why it got in that condition. It's in bad condition. It's in real bad condition. And unless you're gonna just park some dump trucks on it for the next 20 years, it's gonna look bad. I know the one garage that's there, it's probably not up to code, that garage. It's being rented cheaply. I know the kid that's in there. So it's not really being used properly as it currently is. And it's easy to say, well, bring it up to code. Well, if the guy who owns that property doesn't have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to bring it up to code, he's not going to. So what do you want to do? Take it from him? No. So it's a complicated issue. We'd rather see something rather than nothing. And I would like to see commercial, and I'd like to see industrial, actually, not even commercial. I'd like to see industrial, but where's the developer? Who's the guy who's going to put up the couple of $1 million to develop it that way? Yeah, you know, how do we solicit those developers? They don't seem to be out there. Everybody wants to put up residential, it seems. That's the trend. So the town gets, the town is also in a bind that way because its current condition and use is really not the best option. It's not about putting a coat of paint on those buildings anymore either. It's about putting a serious amount of money into them. So who's going to do that? It was like number 10. I understood your argument also, but who's going to put $5, $6 million into an old school building and do what with it? You know, the town didn't have the money to do that. A developer wasn't interested in it. So we may have our wish list, but it doesn't necessarily jive with what the money wants to do in the street. The developers aren't interested in it. That development that went on in Nutley, I was shocked that they built what they built. It was rented almost immediately. There's all small businesses operating down there, businesses like yours and mine, which we're getting harder and harder to find space.
Here's your argument. Let them fix it up, they'll rent it in a minute.
Yeah,
there's no vacancies in the valley.
We got the public session closed right now.
Just to say, you can't
Well,
force...
he's talking to me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
And so I'm answering
because
it.
what you said to some degree...
If you're trying to justify to cater this developer, go ahead and do it. But there's no reason that can't be rented. There isn't a single vacancy in the valley.
You said that you've bought properties and you've redeveloped it.
With my own money, yes.
Would you be interested in buying that and redeveloping it?
No, not that big, but these people got big money.
But we can't force that issue as the governing body or the planning board. We can't pick and choose the developers. They have to arrive in a free market sense and say, yeah, we're interested in putting garages down there. They're not there.
Your only decision is if it's an area needed redevelopment, and it's not. It's a property maintenance issue, not. Forget about, you're already conceding that it's, both you and the chairman are conceding that it's going to be residential there.
No, we can see nothing.
No, not at all.
I didn't say it. You people
I
are
actually
saying it.
asked a question to see that.
I've never seen a plan for it, so
Yeah, there is
we don't
no
know.
plan.
There's no plan that any of us saw.
If you know, I did not use the word residential, you did. And he's saying that the developers want to come in there for, it's more profitable.
In general,
that's what you say.
Right.
Well, you know, it's hurting this town. It's hurting. And go look at Center Street down there in Nutley. Look at all the vacancies of the new rental properties they built there. And with a couple of stores. There's one store, a convenience store. The other store's been empty for what, 5 years? So you heard, and then what happened at Essex Park? They built tons of money within the, you know how many tax appeals they've done so far?
We definitely have to close the public portion.
Well, it's not an area new redevelopment.
That's your opinion.
He can rent that to small businesses. There's a lot of guys. I got a mason who's looking to store the dump
Mr.
truck.
Frantantoni, the public session is closed. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Lois, call the vote, please.
Mr. Manero.
Yes.
Mrs. Inalgerato.
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
No.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mattakini,
Yes.
and Mr. Dacus.
Yes. Just so, maybe you want to explain to them, if the council agrees to this and then authorizes a redevelopment plan, that redevelopment plan comes to you for your approval before it goes back to the council.
Right. The council will direct us to prepare a plan. It will come to you for review and comment, which will be referred back to the council via resolution. And the council can choose to adopt the plan as is, incorporate the board's comments, or not adopt the plan at all. So that's the next step.
So it'll be, the redevelopment plan becomes the zoning ordinance for that as well.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Tom, do you have, did you want the school?
No, I think there's people from the school, schools here to present.
Yeah, they're here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're here. Want to call them?
It's not on the-
Yes, it is.
Yes.
The new agenda.
New agenda.
Yes.